Hi, I'm Josh from eSpares, and in this video I'll be helping you to diagnose dispenser and filling problems in your washing machine. Let's start with a machine that isn't filling properly. It could be due to a fault inside or outside the machine, but a really easy way for you to test is by disconnecting the hose from the back of the machine and using it to fill a bucket. If the flow of water is quite fast, or if it's what you would normally expect to be coming from your tap, then that would indicate that the problem is inside the machine. On the other hand, if the flow of water is quite slow or if there's not much of it, then that would indicate a fault with the water supply. Now, if the fault is inside the machine, one of the places that this might occur is the solenoid valves here. The solenoid valves control how much water is allowed into the machine, and you can test them for functionality using a multimeter and just take a resistance reading. Now obviously make sure that your machine is unplugged before you do this, and you can just place either probe onto the terminals of the valve, and for a working valve you'd be looking for a reading of somewhere between 2000 and 5000 ohms. Now on this one I'm getting just over 4000, and on this one just under 4000. So obviously both of those valves are okay. Now the water passes through the solenoid valves here and up the hoses into the soap dispenser drawer. Another problem that some people may have on their machine is that the conditioner isn't being washed out of the dispenser drawer into the drum. That can arise due to a couple of reasons. Firstly, the spray jets that are above the drawer can become blocked and contaminated with something such as mold, and that means that the water isn't being passed through the drawer and washing the conditioner into the drum. Now you can check for contamination just by removing the dispenser drawer and checking the spray jets inside for any blockages. And once you're happy that those are clear, the other reason that the conditioner might not be washed out is because the valves aren't functioning properly. This valve controls this hose here, and that sends water into the pre-wash compartment here, while this valve controls this hose and sends water into the main wash compartment here. Now when both valves are on, both hoses are firing and the water is washed into the conditioner compartment here. So if the water isn't being washed into this compartment, it means that one of the hoses isn't firing, and that's most likely to be due to a valve. Now another reason that the conditioner might not be getting washed out of the drawer is because the siphon is blocked up. So just take it out and have a look inside, because obviously if it is clogged up, the water is not going to be able to wash the conditioner out of the compartment. Moving on to washing powder problems. If the flow of water into the drawer is quite low, it's not going to be sufficient enough to wash the powder out of the drawer. It's just going to make the powder damp, and that's going to clog the drawer up. So when you first put your machine onto a cycle, just open the drawer slightly and have a look inside for how much water is coming into it. Obviously, if the flow of water is quite low, you're going to need to check your water supply to make sure that's okay. Another way in which the washing powder can clog up in the drawer is if you're doing several washing loads one after another. If the drawer is still wet from the previous cycle and you're putting powder into it, again the powder is going to get damp and clog up in the drawer. So fill the drum with the washing load first and then put the powder in just as you're about to put your machine onto a cycle, so it doesn't have a chance to get damp. One final word about the dispenser drawer. If you've been using too much washing powder consistently in your machine, over time this can actually block up in the pipe between the drawer and the drum, and as a result water is going to pour out of the drawer and down the front of the machine. This can be quite easily resolved if you just take the lid off your machine and reach inside to the pipe between the drawer and the drum. Just give the pipe a bit of a squeeze just to loosen any blockages, then that should resolve the problem. Now, if you're finding that your machine is overfilling, this can be caused by a problem with the pressure switch or level indicator, or the hose that connects it to the drum. The hose goes from the pressure switch down to a chamber which is filled with air, and as water comes into the drum, it forces the air out of the chamber and up the hose, and from that the pressure switch can determine how much water is coming into the machine. However, if there's a blockage in the hose, the switch isn't going to be able to tell how much water is coming in, so the water is going to keep filling. Now you can resolve this quite easily if you just unclip the pipe from the end of the switch and make sure that the machine is empty while you're doing this, and then just blow into the pipe to clear any blockages. And a clear pipe should produce a nice bubbling noise from the water at the other end. Also, if there's a hole in the pipe, that's going to affect the air pressure inside it and also the pressure switch's response. If your machine is filling with water, starting to wash and then filling again, that could indicate that there is a hole in the pipe, in which case you'll need to replace it. Another cause of repeated filling in the drum is if the drain hose at the back of the machine is lower than the water level in the drum. As a result, water is going to drain out of the drum and away through the drain hose, and more water will have to be brought in to compensate. So just make sure that the drain hose is set at a level that's higher than the water level in the drum. If the drum is filling with water even when the machine isn't turned on, and the drain hose is connected to a spigot underneath the kitchen sink, then it could be that the machine is backfilling with water from the sink. Now you can test this by just turning the taps on the sink and checking the water level inside the drum to see if it rises. Now if it does, you need to make sure that the drain hose is set at a level higher than the water level in the sink before it connects to the spigot at the end. Now, another reason that the drum might fill with water even when the machine isn't turned on is if the solenoid valves are faulty. It's going to mean that a small amount of water is creeping in through the hoses and down through the dispenser drawer into the drum. Again, you can check this by just removing the dispenser drawer and having a look on the back wall for any signs of water that might be dripping it down and making its way into the drum. Spares for washing machines and other appliances are available on the eSpares website. Thanks for watching.